sure everything's good. Hello, hello. We will start.
Too much fear, too much you were meant for this in a child's ear. Roof might talk, stairs might leave, knives might sing when the whole room breathes. Hold on tight, don't close your eyes. The joke ain't funny when it's got teeth inside. We'll have to bite, bite under lantern light. Small spark, don't you run. The lesson starts when the laughing comes. We'll have to bite in the moonstruck night. Tiny crown, big fright, small spark, stay alive. We'll have to bite.
Hello. And you're late. You're not terribly late. The lanterns are still burning, and I take that back. You're early. The kids are still outside screaming. It's still light? Strange. Anyways, nothing has said your name. Nothing's spoken beneath the floorboards. Nothing's even mentioned you, so come on in. Welcome to BIM's story time on my channel, Haerikyron, where I tell tales from Thrensibal's magnificent menagerie and occasionally other worlds. I'm your host, Bim, and I welcome you. And apparently so do the children outside. I'm not sure. I hope you don't have to hear that. They are super, super high pitched, but I digress. I want to just mention it before I move on that this show is not meant for children. There are themes and other things, curse words, so on and so forth. If you're still there afterwards, little one, then you're spoiled. This episode's not so bad, so if they're sitting there, it's probably okay. Now, last time, Bim stood between the weight of a future far larger than his little squeaking shoes could handle. He was given a name as an heir. He was given a place and a path. But being chosen does not mean being ready. And being surrounded by performers does not mean you know what belongs beneath your own spotlight. Tonight, Bim begins a search for one thing no one else can give him: his own spectacle. Not Thrensibal's, not Bond's, not Annalise's fire, but his. But before we can find it, there are questions waiting for him in the warmth of Band's kitchen. Questions about fear, survival, about children who came before him, which brings us to tonight's question. Have you ever stopped loving something or pretending you had because someone made you feel foolish for loving it? Tell me about it in the comments. That is, if you're comfortable. And, well, I'll check up on it later and possibly respond. Tonight's story is Chapter 7, Where Laughter Bites. Listen, a bread and cooked food lingered in the kitchen, grounding the moment before it could drift back into fear. Steam curled near the stove. The kettle waited patiently. Van saw the word still sat crooked inside him. So she tried again. Smaller this time, less throne, more kitchen table. And before I continue reading, I want to apologize. My voice is kind of bunked today, so I'll do my best. But the show goes on. Spectacle changes the air, she said. Someone enters a room, understands what people are feeling, and makes them feel it more. Bim watched her closely, fingers curled around the edge of his sleeve. Laugh harder, cry harder, lean forward without knowing why. So it's not just tricks, Bim said. No. Or being loud? No. Or fire? Fire helps, Ben admitted. But no. His mouth twitched. Ben allowed herself the smallest little smile. A spectacle is what happens when something inside you reaches other people clearly enough that they feel it too. Ben looked down at his own hands. What if what's inside is scared? Then they may feel scared with you, Ben replied. His fingers tightened. Ben leaned closer. But fear, shared honestly, can become courage in someone else. Ben looked up. That's why Thrensible noticed you. Not because you were fearless. Because you aren't. They answered subtle more gently than the title ever had. Not like another burden placed on his shoulders, more like a lantern set up on the table where he could turn it slowly to examine every side. Ben's expression softened. He sees something in you, little light, something in your spirit. Ben's brow furrowed immediately. He wants my spirit? Ben blinked. No. Are you sure? Yes. Because people here keep saying things like that. Ben opened her mouth, then closed it. That's unfortunately fair. She crouched in front of him, bringing herself closer to his level. When I say spirit, I mean the part of you that's you. She tapped two fingers lightly against the center of his chest. The part that had kept going. Bim's grip loosened slightly. The part that ran when something wanted you to freeze. The part that stepped into the lantern light even though you were scared. The part that asked what spectacle meant because you wanted to understand instead of pretending you did. He looked at her quietly. Ben's expression softened. That kind of spirit. Bim considered this for a long moment. Then, very carefully, so he doesn't want to put me in a jar? Ben stared. Then she pinched the bridge of her nose. No, Bim. Bensible does not want to put your spirit in a jar. From somewhere impossibly deep in the distant estate, a voice faintly echoed. Not without labeling it properly. Ben closed her eyes. Bim went completely still. Ben? Ignore him. He heard us? He always hears us when it's inconvenient. Bim leaned closer and whispered, Does he have jars? Ben lowered her hand. Do not ask questions you are not emotionally prepared to survive. Bim slowly sat back. Does that mean yes? It means eat your toast. I don't have any toast. Ben looked at the empty table, then stood. I'll make toast. The ordinary sentence landed strangely after everything else. Toast, not vessel or pillars, spirits in jars, just breakfast. Bim watched her mouth move. Bim watched her mouth. Bim watched her move towards the. Okay, I'm messing this up. 1 second. This light is messing with me. I need to get it out of my view. Okay. Bim watched her move towards the counter. Still unconvinced but less frightened than before, it was difficult for terror to grow properly in a kitchen that smelled of bread and had been muttering threats at invisible men. Again, sorry about my voice. She reached for the plate, then pointed one finger at him. For absolute clarity, no one is putting any part of you in a jar. What about in a labeled jar? Especially not labeled. From very far away in the estate, that is how things get misplaced. Friendsable, Ben said without raising her voice. The estate went quiet. Not the terrible silence of law, more like someone ancient and dramatic had wisely chosen to become furniture. Ben returned to the counter. Your spirit is not something to be taken, she continued with enormous patience. It is what you bring with you into a room, into a choice, into fear. She set the plate down slightly harder than necessary. It is how you remain yourself. Ben looked at the plate she had, or Ben looked at the place she had touched on his chest. It felt warm there. Not magic, not exactly, just attention. And whatever you do, Ben added, he wants you to be inside it. Ben proud. Inside it? Present, she clarified, not hiding behind tricks, not copying someone else, not trying to become friendsable, just he gave you a little hat, and that's clearly winning a war against your head. Ben pushed the brim of the hat back up. It's not winning. It absolutely is. He held the hat with both hands, as though physically restraining it might help his argument. Ben's smile softened. The spectacle is not just what people see, she said. It is what they feel because you were there. The kitchen stayed warm around them. Bread, tea, moonlight, quiet things, safe things, things that did not need applause to matter. Ben returned to the counter and resumed preparing the meal. The simple motion made the conversation easier to carry. In the master tent, she had been law. Here, she opened cupboards, searched for plates, and when someone was not, muttered when something was not where it belonged. Both versions were banned. That seemed important. He wants all of us to find what makes us happy, she said, setting a plate on the counter. And push it until other people feel it too. Bim considered that. What if what makes someone happy is weird? Ben glanced over her shoulder. Have you met this place? Bim looked around the kitchen, then towards the pale moon, then beyond the window. He sighed. Then a quiet giggle escaped Ben. Tomorrow, you and I are visiting the brothers. The way she said it made Bim immediately suspicious. The brothers? Gong and Gong. He stared at her. Those are names? Yes. On purpose? Ben paused. You know what? That's fair, little one. She returned to the meal, though fondness had hid badly in the motion. They are different. Bim did not like how carefully she said it. The menagerie used different in the way other places used warning signs. Different how? Ben considered her answer. Not because she didn't know, because she knew too much. That is difficult to explain without making it sound worse than it is. Bim went still. That means it's bad. It means I'm choosing my words. That doesn't sound any better. Ben pointed at him with the butter knife. You are learning too quickly. She finished plating the meal and set it before him. Steam curled upward, carrying the smell of bread, meat, and herbs after smoked velvet, applause, and old magic. It smelled almost impossible. Ordinary. Kind. Eat, she said. You'll need the strength. My voice is cracking. Bim obeyed. The first bite loosened his shoulders before he noticed he had his shoulders too tight. He watched Ben across the table as though she might explain everything if he paid close enough attention. She rested her chin against one hand. There was thoughtfulness in her gaze, and something sharpened beneath it. Calculation, perhaps, but not unkind. They may seem funny, Ben continued, but their wit is sharper than it looks. Sometimes sharper than it needs to be. Bim swallowed. Are they scary? Ben considered that carefully. Yes. He froze, fork halfway to his mouth, hat slipping towards one eye. Ben raised one finger, but not in the important ways. That doesn't help. It does. It helps me. Bim stared at her. Ben sighed. They're not dangerous, scary. He kept staring. They're conversation scary. What does that mean? They ask questions. Oh, not little questions, big ones. Bim frowned. Like what? Ben looked towards the ceiling as if memory itself had offended her. Ngong once asked whether soup becomes a beverage if you're emotionally committed enough. Even the kettle appeared to consider the silence. Bim stared. What? Exactly. She pointed at him. That reaction lasted 3 hours. 3 hours? Gong is worse. How? He sounds reasonable. Bim slowly lowered his fork. Okay. Why is that dangerous? See? You're learning, Ben replied. The hat slid further. He didn't notice. The brothers don't teach by explaining things, Ben said. They make your brain trip over itself. That sounds funny. It can be educational, Ben replied. Ben stared at him for a moment, then gave him a small nod. She leaned back in her chair. They'll teach you to think faster, handle yourself when things stop making sense. Ben looked around the impossible kitchen beneath the unmoving moon. Things already don't make sense. Ben opened her mouth, closed it, thought better of arguing. Yes, well, you have a head start. The kitchen settled around them again. Moonlight beyond the window, warm food, soft lantern light, scrape of Bim's spoon against his plate, Ben sleeve brushing the table as she reached for a cup. Soft and safe noises. And for the first time all day, Ben found himself worrying about tomorrow instead of yesterday. Ben noticed, which gave her the faintest smirk at the corner of her mouth. It also gives me time to run my tent without worrying about you setting something on fire. Ben looked up immediately. I wasn't going to set anything on fire. Ben stared at him. You asked if you could learn fire eating less than an hour ago. That's not the same thing. It is profoundly related, Ben replied. Ben looked down at his food. Maybe it's a little related, Ben pointed at it with complete vindication. Aha! The joke gave the room air again. Space. A way for Bim to breathe around everything he still did not understand. They continued eating beneath the pale and moving moon. Silver light slipped through the tall windows and pulled across the table. The house rested quietly around them. Not the kind of quiet that passed against them, the kind that simply stayed. Ben kept the conversation small. What he liked, what he did not. Whether he always ran quickly or terror had given him an unfair advantage. Some answers came easily. Toast was good. Fire should probably stay out of mouths. The hat was not winning. Ben disagreed. Other answers caught against memory. When they did, Ben did not pull. She moved the conversation gently aside and let him decide whether to follow. After a while, when his plate was nearly empty and his shoulders had loosened, she rested her chin against one hand. What games did you play? With toys? Ben nodded. Bim thought for a moment. I built forts with blankets and pillows. Advanced strategy. A tiny bit of pride appeared in his face. Enough for Ben to notice, but not enough for her to speak over it. What else? Bim looked down. I like dinosaurs. The answer came softer, smaller, almost apologetic. Ben tilted her head. Dinosaurs? He nodded. They're cool. A moment of silence. Then, more quietly, my dad said velociraptors probably looked funny. The room changed. Not visibly, but not visibly nor dramatically, just enough for someone else to enter it. Memory, or the shape of a voice, the outline of someone absent, an empty chair becoming impossible not to notice. Bim stared at his plate. I told him he was wrong. His voice grew smaller. He said if a giant chicken chased me, I changed my mind. Ben stayed very still. Steam curled between them briefly, blurring his face before vanishing into the lantern light. Bim tightened his grip on the spoon until the edge pressed into his palm. And would you? Ben asked gently. He frowned. What? Change your mind. Bim thought about it. Really thought about it. Dinosaurs were easier than titles, easier than vessels, pillars, and princes whose names made rooms go cold. Probably. Ben smiled. Tiny. Careful. Reasonable, she said. But I still think dinosaurs are cool. Good. She leaned back slightly. Never trust fear to decide what you're allowed to love. The words left her quietly, as though she had not intended to say them aloud. For a moment, the kitchen seemed to hear them too. The lantern light softened. The kettle sat still. Beyond the window, the pale moon hung over the estate, silver and unmoving. Bim looked up. Ben's gaze had drifted somewhere beyond it. Not gone, not exactly, but standing inside a memory she had not invited to the table. Then she blinked. The moment passed. Miss Bond? Did a dinosaur hurt you? Ben turned toward him. Absolute silence. What? What? You got sad and said something wise. A very long pause between them followed. Ben stared at him. The hat slipped towards one eye. Neither of them noticed. Little light. Yes? Eat your food. Did a dinosaur eat? But, Bim. Okay. He took another bite. Slowly, suspiciously, as though the truth about Bon and dinosaurs might be hiding somewhere among the herbs. Ben took a very long drink. Somehow, the conversation had become more dangerous than fire. My ear's about to fall off. Screw it, we're gonna fix it. Is what we're gonna do. Yeah, well, it's hot. It's really hot. That's fine. The kitchen settled around them again. Warm, quiet, moonlit. Outside the menagerie waited with its lanterns and monsters, It's carnies and riddles. It's impossible roads curling beneath a moon that never moved. Tomorrow would bring gong and nong, gong and ngong, questions, training, whatever scary conversations meant. But tonight, there was food, a chair beneath him, then across the table, pretending not to smile into her cup. Bim held his spoon into both hands and decided that dinosaurs were still cool. Fires should probably remain outside mouths, and perhaps tomorrow was allowed to become closer. But only a little, only after sleep. The hat slipped over his eyes. Dan sighed. Bim pushed it back up, and beneath the pale unmoving moon, the house kept them safe. Morning arrived without sunrise. The pale moon still hung beyond the kitchen window, while Bim sat across from Ban at breakfast. He had been quiet for several minutes, turning a question over in his mind. Finally, he looked up. Are there others like me? Ban's hand still around her cup. Yeah. A small pause. Not long, but long enough for Bim to feel the shape of the answer before the rest of it came. Yes, Ban said. There have been others like you. She leaned back slightly in her chair and exhaled through her nose, slow and quiet, as if the truth was something she had learned long ago to carry carefully. In fact, there have been many who have found the carnival, or perhaps I should say, have been found by it. Her eyes drifted towards the window again, towards that endless pale moon suspended in the unmoving sky. Not looking away from him, remembering, not all human, not all children. She didn't say that last part. Not yet. Some were chased, she said. Some were lost. Some were running. Some just opened the wrong door. Bim blinked. The wrong door? Ben nodded once. The menagerie moved strangely, a faint shrug. Worlds touch, places overlap. Sometimes people fall between things. She looked back at him. Sometimes people are already falling before they arrive. Bim grew quiet again. Bim stared down at his plate. Did they stay? Ben's expression shifted. Small, almost too small to notice, but there. Careful. Some. The answer landed softly, almost too softly. Bim looked up immediately. Some? Ben rested both hands together atop the table, thinking, choosing, because children heard absences better than adults did. Some left, she said quietly. Some found homes elsewhere. Some became performers. Others became residents. And a few, quite a few, she looked, her voice lowered slightly, wanted different things. Bim watched her carefully. The kitchen seemed to hold still around them. Even the moonlight felt quieter, and some didn't make it. Ben finished. Silence. No joke after it. No quick smirk. No soft correction. Just cold truth. Bim looked down at his food. His fingers tightened around the edge of the table. Oh. Ben's expression softened immediately. Little light. Did they get eaten? Ben blinked. Absolute stillness. Then, what? Bim looked up. The carnival has monsters. Reasonable. Entirely reasonable. The woods had monsters. Also true, she replied. Mr. Thrensible has jars. Van closed her eyes again. Leave that out of this. And everyone keeps saying things like vessel and spectacle and eternity. He looked increasingly distressed as he spoke. So, I'm trying to figure out what's happening here. Van stared at him. Then, slowly, very, very slowly, she covered her face. Not because the question was ridiculous, because somehow, through the logic of a frightened 5-year-old, it made perfect sense. Her shoulders moved once, tiny, dangerously close to laughter, dangerously close to sadness, too. Then she lowered her hands. No, softly, no little light. She reached across the table and rested her hands over his. No one is being secretly eaten. At least regularly. Silence fell between them. Van froze. Bim froze. Ben stared into the middle of the distance. Long. Very long. I have made a mistake. Bim stared at her with widened eyes. Ben? She pointed immediately. No. But no. You said I rejected the sentence. You made the sentence. I'm unmaking it. Bim looked horrified. Ben leaned across the table and took both of his tiny hands in hers. Bim. Her eyes were very serious. So was her voice. No one is secretly being eaten that I know of. Silence fell again. Ben closed her eyes, slowly lowering her forehead onto the table. A thump, then followed by a long pause, muffled against the wood. I'm not good at this. Another pause between them. This one felt heavier, heavy enough to cut. On average, she continued slowly, choosing each word with more care now. Only 1 in 5 is ever spared from the darkness that follows them in. Bim went still. The number didn't fully land, not yet. He was too young for statistics, too tired for scale, but the tone did. The quiet weight of it, the shape of loss hidden inside of it. The kitchen suddenly felt larger, quieter. The moon outside remained exactly where it had always been, silver still and watching. So, how many? He asked, voice smaller now, softer around the edges. How many like me are there? Ben looked back at him. Really looked this time. Not just at the child in the chair, at what he meant, at what he might become, what it would cost if he were to fail. You, she said quietly, are the third successful heir of Thrensible. The words hung between them. Third. Not first. Not only. Bim blinked. The question arrived almost immediately. Third? Ben nodded once. The third. His little brow furrowed. So there's 2 more? A tiny smile touched Ben's mouth. Children always reached for the easiest math first. Yes. Bim looked almost relieved. Almost visibly relieved. Ben stared. Then realization crossed her face, and immediately, no. Bim froze. No. Ben rubbed at her forehead. No, not no. I mean, yes, but not. She stopped, stared over, took a long breath in. There are others, she said slowly. But it isn't. Her eyes drifted briefly between the windows, towards the moon, towards somewhere much further away. So simple. Bim looked worried again. The first was me. Her voice softened. I was the first. Principal almost never speaks of it. Bim looked down. And you stayed? Van folded her hands together, thinking, then, I don't know, but I'm here, little light. Honest, simple, painfully honest. Bim stared. So you don't know? Van shook her head. No. Sometimes people become so important to a place that eventually the place remembers them differently. Bim blinked. That made absolutely no sense to him. His face confirmed this immediately. Van looked at him, looked at this expression, then sighed. That sounded like something Principal would say. Yes? Sorry. Bim looked down at his plate, then very carefully. And the second? Ben's expression shifted. Tiny. Brief. But there. Not pain. Not fear. Something more complicated. Affection tangled with expression. Oh. There was a pause between them. You'll meet him eventually. Bim looked up. Really? Yes. Is he scary? Ben stared at the ceiling. Thought. Long thought. Yes. Bim slumped instantly. But not because he wants to be. Bim looked up a little. Ben began searching for the words. Loud. Emotionally catastrophic. And occasionally on fire. Absolute silence fell between them. Bim just stared. So Ben stared back. People are on fire a lot here. Ben pointed at him. Now you understand the menagerie, little one. Bim sat there quietly, thinking. Third, not first, not alone. Not the only child Principal had looked at and decided. Mine. The thought felt almost strange, almost too big. Somewhere deep in his chest, beneath fear and grief and confusion, something loosened. Slightly. Because if there had been others, if someone else had stood where he stood, then maybe. Did I do what I did last time? I probably did. It's okay. Right? We got this. Because we're almost to halftime. No, not quite yet, but we are almost there. So I cut it off. It's been a while. No, I'm not going to be doing as many commentations, but I realized I made a mistake. Hopefully it's not too loud. I may have to turn it down a tad. Nah, it looks fine. So something loosened just slightly. Because if there had been others, if someone else had stood where he stood, then maybe this impossible place had instructions after all. But, she added, her tone shifting slightly, something more deliberate settling into it, you are the first who can become a fate du hinge. A fate emphasis rested on the words, not just surviving, becoming something. Bim blinked, trying to follow, trying to fit titles and futures and darkness and survival into a mind still built for simpler things. Van saw it and softened just slightly. There's another tent, she went on, her voice steady again. One you haven't seen yet. Her fingers tapped once against the table. But they have seen you. That landed differently between them. quiet yet stranger. The menagerie, for all its impossible size, suddenly felt smaller in the worst kind of way, like eyes had already been on him long before he knew where to look. And beneath the pale moon, with the food cooling between them and the house wrapped in careful silence, Bim felt the word widen again, not into wonder and a consequence. He rested her chin lightly against her hand again. Bim stared at her. They watch me? Ben immediately regretted the wording. Not visibly, just internally, profoundly. A little. A little? They pay attention. Why? Silence fell between them, but only for a moment. Dangerous yet small. Because you're important. Bim's face fell. Not dramatically, not loudly, but just enough. Because he had already said he didn't want that. Ben noticed. She sighed softly. No little light. She leaned forward. Not important like a king. Not important like a weapon. Not important like responsibilities. Her eyes held hid. Important like weather. Bim blinked. In absolute confusion. What? Ben stared at him. Then, in a reflection of herself. Then at the ceiling. So you're saying I'm becoming him? Somewhere impossibly distant in the estate. Becoming is a mutual process. Also natural. Ben pointed upward instantly. No. Silence. Then quieter. Thank you for proving my point. Bim looked between the ceiling and Ben. Does he live on the roof? No. Maybe. Ben? Yes? That's scary. Ben immediately sat up. Oh no. She moved from her chair and crouched beside him at once. No. Not roof principal. Forget any of that crap. He's not actually there. You said it. I was lying. You said not to lie. I made a strategic error. Bim stared at her. Ben stared back. A long pause between them. Then she gently fixed the brim of his hat again. Listen. Her voice softened. Careful now. Very careful. The other tent watches because they protect things. Bim looked up. Like guards? Ben considered this. Sort of. Scary guards? Yes. Fire guards? Occasionally. Bim looked exhausted. Honestly exhausted. He slumped slightly in the chair. There's a lot of fire people. There are. There's a lot of scary people. There are. There's a lot of tent people. Yes. Silence fell between them for a moment. Then, very quietly, I'm starting to miss normal things. The words slipped out before he meant them to slip out, small and honest. And suddenly the room fell very still. Ben looked up at him, really looked up at him, at the little tux, at the oversized hat and the tiny hands. The child trying very hard not to cry over a world he had only left yesterday. Her expression softened all at once. Not with pity, but something gentler. Something that hurt more. She reached over and pulled him into a quiet hug. I might be behind him. I'm behind. I'll figure that out. Hold on. I'm going to look at an image. There's a hand swap. There's another hand swap. Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't give him a hug. Yeah, that's fine. We'll fix it. I'm just checking. Be sure. Not yet. Okay, yeah. That's fine. Whatever. Not dramatic. Not tight. Just there. I know, she whispered. The moonlight stayed silver. The kitchen stayed warm. And for a little while, Ben stopped explaining the menagerie and just held the child inside it. Ben rested both arms lightly on the table, her gaze drifting for a moment before she continued. This master you haven't met yet, she said, her voice thoughtful now, as if she were choosing how to best describe someone who resisted a neat explanation. He's actually from the world that allowed us to connect to you. She tapped one finger against the wood, small, but absent, like brushing dust from an old memory. He's strange. But not in a bad way, Bim stared. Because at this point, strange had become a deeply concerning category. Not menagerie strange. Bim looked unconvinced. Dan sighed. Less menagerie strange. Still unconvinced, she pressed onward. A faint smirk touched her lips. I believe he had said he comes from a place called Lumenvale. Now, I want to make something clear, and I am going to side here for a moment. Much earlier, I said the wrong name. My realm is called Lumenvale. What I ended up saying was something totally different. I said Lumenfall. That has to do with the character we're going to be introduced today, and it's just part of something bigger for my story. The actual realm is called Lumenvale, but I digress. It sounded bright. Too bright, maybe for a place tied to a carnival hidden inside endless night. Bim frowned slightly. Lumenhale. Ben corrected him. Vale then nodded. He described it to me once. Her smile tugged a little further, very dramatically. Like Mr. Thrensible? No one is like Mr. Thrensible. She said it with absolute certainty, immediate certainty. Thankfully, Ben thought about it. He didn't understand. Ben leaned back slightly. He said his world was all towers and light and floating cities. Ben blinked. Floating cities. Cities can do that? Not normally. Ben tried to understand. He tried very hard. Ben? Yes. Things keep being normal, then suddenly not normal. Ben stared at him for a moment, then slowly, very slowly, nodded. Yes. Silence fell around the room. Then softer, she said. That never completely stops. Ben looked down. Lumenvale, floating cities, another master, another tent, more eyes. More things already waiting for him. The world just kept getting larger. He pushed lightly at the food on his plate. Why does he look at me? Ben's expression softened. The question had arrived already. Too quiet. Not afraid. Not really. Just small. Just honest. She thought for a moment. Ben replied, because he recognizes something. Ben looked up. What? Ben looked towards the pale moon beyond the windows. Towards the endless sky, towards places beyond places. When she answered, her voice was softer. I think there's a small pause. I think he recognizes someone standing at the beginning of something. The room grew still. Ben looked down at his hands. His tiny hands. Sleeves finally starting to fit. Alright. So we are officially at our halftime. Sorry, it's been a little rough. My voice is not in its A game. We're in a B game, and that's okay. But I would like to let everyone know that around this time is when we get our restroom breaks in, or smoking if you're a smoker, because I know smokers smoke. Quit smoking, but go smoke. You know what I mean? This is break time. You have somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes before I pick back up the story, because I do this part, I call it the midnight oil burn. where we partake in whatever the hell it is you do. If you smoke, go smoke. If you drink, please be somewhere safe. But if that's what you do that. If you go sneak a fucking candy bar at 1 a.m., go grab an extra one tonight for you, homie. That's what we're going to do. Me, on the other hand, and those of you who know what we do, I am going to partake in the dabbening. Now, I have to set this up, so I guess I might as well say, join me, partake with me. Whatever you're doing, go smoke, go feed your dog a piece of ham, whatever it is that makes you feel good about yourself. I'm going to take a drink. It is break time. And so, normally what I do, I'm going to change things up tonight. I have made character cards. We're about to be introduced to a lot of characters in my story. Not just Miss Bon here, not just Little Bim right over there. Oh, not just the creepy hat principal. We're about to be getting deeper into so many characters, so since we're doing that during break time, I'm going to start displaying character cards. So give me one moment. And since we're going to be sliding into break, I'm going to go ahead and play the song. I don't want to lose where we are. I'm going to play the whole song lightly from the beginning and low, okay? And then I'm going to get rid of this one for now. I know where we are in case something goes wrong, and we're going to allow that to roll. These are character cards I'm doing. That's right here. There will be hints on what may be coming in the story because, like I said, I only fix it to make it more legible for me. I put breath markers and other things. I sit here and waste everyone's time instead of doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah, you know me, this is normal. Yeah. You're out there tonight. Hello, I need to check the chat. Nobody's in chat tonight, it doesn't look like, but that's fine. Unless I'm looking in the wrong space, which is also very possible, but we'll go ahead and check that. Live chat. Hey, Gabe. I just now seen that whoop whoop. Hey, buddy. Yeah, we're on break time. I finally see it. I like doing this. So like I said, I'm going to continue doing it. I have another story that is called Opie, The Death of Curiosity. I dropped a song about it. It's on Suno as well as on my local Facebook. You may see it at some point. You know, if you can, give it a thumbs up if you like it. That's the side story that I'm going to be getting. If you know what it's based off of, then you know what it's based off of, but it's not that story. I want to make it very clear. Yes, you are going to be seeing new characters. I'm not going to explain any of them because, well, you'll meet all of them in time. These are stories that these are characters that are already deeply ingrained into the stories. They're not just some new flashy stuff. These are part of the core. I haven't even put everybody. There are characters that are mentioned I haven't even added to this yet, who have already been mentioned, but they're not used enough to put up there. The people that are mainly up there consistently make room. Okay, hold on. Partake. See that magic as everything disappears. I love that shit. Green screen's cool. Yes, I use the green screen. I am real, by the way. That is something else I want to very just say. I'm a real person. I'm not some AI bullshit. I use AI a little bit to help me with these. But for the most part, my writing is me. This is all going. And some of these characters were actually originally drawn. At some point I'll display those. I drew them out. I threw them into AI and they started to color them, which I thought was cool. The coloring is wicked high quality, so yeah. But yeah. 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Yeah, my ear keeps popping off. I even have stuff to hold it. It's just hot. So here in a minute. Yeah, it randomly selects them. There's no order. So you might see one pop up a few times. You might see the same one. You might see a different one. Next week, I believe, we get introduced to Gong and Gong. Or no, we get introduced to Eccles. And that will be fun. But it's a completely different thing. It looks like everything's good tonight. Here in a moment. I'm actually going to step away. I will be right back. We're going to go this way. Hopefully the music ended. Yes, it has. It's already moved on to the next thing. We're good. We're gonna go ahead and shift over here in a moment. Sorry, I had to step away. Oh, you went to the bathroom? No, I actually had to go. I can put eye drops in my eyes. My eyes are fucking killing me. So I guess we will go ahead and swap our things here. Oh, that looks terrible, doesn't it? Look at that. Look at that. There we go. We had to go back. So now I gotta go. Wow. So I guess we'll check out all the images real quick that we've been through so far. There's some fun too. I think we're somewhere right around here. Almost see 15. There's a finger. And under the chin. Hat fix. Hug. There it is. See, I fucked this up. What is your problem, man? Finger. I think we're about right in here. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But before we continue, I want to make aware that July is Disability Pride Month. For those of you who don't know, there's actually a thing for that. And I believe that their theme this year is the world works better with us, not around us, not in spite of us, but with us. So tonight we recognize everyone living with a disability, whether the world can see it or not. That includes mental health. But I digress. We burnt the midnight oil, we've calmed down, we've taken our breaks, let's get back to it. The hat slipping lower. Again, he pushed it back up. A long silence fell between them. Then Bim quietly said, "Does he have fire?" Ben blinked. She stood silent for a moment, then covered her eyes. So we probably went back. Bim. What? Why is that the question? He looked completely sincere. Because everyone here seems to have fire. A long silence fell between them as she thought, then lowered her hands. That is becoming upsettingly true as I think about it. But the person you're going to see told me he's from a world where beings once marked evil or born into it, I suppose, forced into it perhaps, can choose something else, Ben said. A different life, not one dictated by whatever star they were supposedly born under, or who they were supposed to follow, or what they were supposed to be. Her eyes flicked back to Bim. Freedom, in a way most places don't allow. The words landed softly, but it carried weight. Bim didn't fully understand worlds or realms or what it meant to be born into evil, but he understood the shape of what she was trying to say. A chance to become something other than what was waiting for you, something other than what chased you, something other than what people decided before they knew you. Ben leaned back slightly. His name is Bernzabark. And yes, it's because he looks Lupin. She paused and looked at him. A hint of amusement slipped into her voice, dry and familiar now, easing some of the heaviness from the room. Bim looked up. What is Lupin? Pine. Lupin. Ben blinked. Stunned in absolute silence. Then she explained. A wolf being. Like a werewolf, kinda. Oh, Bim said. So he's not actually a wolf? There was a pause, then thought about it. Not exactly. He's not secretly one, is he? Not entirely, Ben said. Is he a half-wolf? No. Is he tiny? Ben stared at him. Then stared in the middle of nothing. The middle of the kitchen space. I've created a little problem. Bim frowned. You said not to make mistakes. Yes, Ben replied. But now I'm thinking about wolves. Ben lowered her face into one hand. That is understandable. She sighed and continued. His title fits him for other reasons, she added. You'll understand that soon enough. And beneath the silver light of the ever unmoving moon, with the quiet of the house holding around them, Bim listened as a menagerie wakened once again. Another piece of a world that seemed determined to become his before he even had learned how to stand within it. He controls laughter, Dan said. Not through chaos, but through, she thought about it for a moment. She paused. Through chaotic subtlety. Bim blinked. Oh, wait. Huh? What? Bim stared. She had to put words together for this. You know what? That's fair. She tried again. Think of the laughter as the kind that sneaks up on you. She folded her arms loosely, thinking. The kind someone says when someone says something normal, and 6 minutes later, your brain realizes that the sentence was wrong. Ben frowned. That sounds kind of mean. It can be. Sometimes. Under him sit the brothers, she continued. Gong and Long. Her expression flattened immediately. And his nephew, he who has. Bim almost stopped. He just stared. Absolute stillness. His what? Nephew. No. Ben looked at him. No. The other thing. He who has. Ben pointed. Yes. Ben looked at him. Ben looked towards the ceiling. Not asking for help. Just enduring. Yes. That's his name? Yes. Like, actually, yes. His real name. Ben stared very hard at the moon outside. Very, very hard. Probably. Bim slowly lowered his spoon. So yeah, I lost track. That's fine. We'll get there. I'll leave it here. I think we're like 1 or 2 ahead of us. Fine. The kitchen suddenly felt dangerous again. Dan? Yes? People name things really poorly here. Ben looked at him. A long pause. You know what? You're adapting beautifully. Bim sat there quietly, thinking about Thrensible. The term Thrensa bark. The words were names, Gong and Ngong. He who has. The Menagerie, the moon, the tents, the strange people. Then, finally, does anyone here have a normal name? And my voice is a lie. Ben opened her mouth, then closed it, tilted her head and thought even longer. Long enough that Bim's eyes slowly widened. Ben looked down at him. Bim looked back. Then silence. Then, oh no. Then her tone shifted slightly. Under him, you'll learn humility, timing, and how to read a crowd before they even know what they feel. We'll go back one, just for fun. Bim listened in silence. Small fingers wrapped around her, trying to imagine lessons built from things too strange and invisible. Law, timing, crowds, humility. They sounded less like school and more like learning how to survive a world made of moods and rules he could not yet see. Ben gave a small nod to herself. It's a good path for you. They moved toward the edge of the estate. Ben rose from the table and offered Bim her hand. Come along, little light. There's someone you need to meet. Bim pushed his hat back into place and slipped his hand into hers, where the air subtly changed again, and the boundary between one place and another, thin like fabric, stretched over light. Yeah, I told you, we were right there. Bim felt it before he understood it. Not the now familiar shift, the soft pull in his stomach, the sense that the world ahead was about to open in a direction it had not occupied a moment before. And with Ben's hands still around his and the pale moon watching from above, he walked towards yet another threshold. For now, she added, we introduce you to your first partner. Bim looked up. Partner? A trainee, Ben said, slightly stumbling over her own words. Someone who will bond with you before you're ready to stand as a pillar. The word bond made him feel uneasy. It sounded sticky, almost permanent, important in the way too many words had become important lately. Ben gave Bim a glimpse. It does not mean being trapped, she said. It means learning how to move beside someone, how to trust, how to be responsible for more than yourself without disappearing into it. Ben frowned slightly. That sounds hard. It is. That don't help. It wasn't meant to sound like that. It was meant to be accurate. He sighed. Ben's lips curved slightly. You've already seen her. Bim's head lifted a little at once. Ben glanced down at him beneath the pale moonlight. Annalise, she said. The fire eater. Bim stopped walking. The image returned immediately. The center ring. The roar of the flame. Are you listening? Yeah, sure. Fire spilling from her mouth in a bright golden arc. The crowd rising around her. That pull in his chest. That spark. She's my partner. For now, Ben said. If she wants to work with you. Bim blinked. If? Ben raised one brow. You thought I was just going to assign you a person? Yes? That would be rude. You've been telling me to do a lot of things. I assign you breakfast and to survive rules. People are different. Bim considered that. It seemed fair, for the most part. The threshold shimmered ahead. The threshold shimmered heaven between two pale stone pillars, its surface flickering faintly with warm gold and smoke-colored light. On the other side, he could already hear distant laughter. Not cruel. Not loud. Quick laughter. Clever laughter. The kind that sounded like it knew something he didn't. Ben squeezed his hand gently. Stay close. Ben pushed his hat back up. Is she scary? Ben looked towards the threshold. A thought of silence followed. Then she said, a little. Ben's shoulders sank. Ben glanced down. But she's also kind. That helped. A little. And loud, Ben added. That helped less. And very proud. And that didn't help either. And if she likes you, she'll probably threaten to teach you something dangerous. Ben's eyes widened. Ben pointed to him. You will say no. But no. What if it's important? It will be fire. What if fire is important? Bim. He shut his mouth. Ben nodded once, satisfied. Then she guided him forward. The world bent. Light folded. The estate slipped away behind them, and together they stepped through and to the laughter waiting on the other side. The name settled warmly in his chest, tied at once to heat, light, and the memory of flames bending like living things in her hands. Annalise. He rolled the sound around quietly in his head. Warm name. Bright name. The kind of name that felt like lantern light and sparks. And a little applause. They crossed the threshold. The world bent around them as the menagerie returned. Sound rushed back in layers. Distant laughter, footsteps on wood and packed earth, the rustle of canvas. The hum of a place always half in motion. Lanterns glowed in impossible places overhead. Past curves where they should have gone straight. The air itself felt busier here, threaded through with motion, warmth, voices rising and falling beyond sight. She was once under my house, Ben continued. Soon, she'll sit underneath yours. She's a fire kitsune, something between an elemental and kitsune. Red hair and a tail to match, pale skin, yellow eyes. Ben glanced towards the moving crowd, already wearing the colors of the Menagerie like she belongs here. Her voice carried quiet and certain on those last words. She does. They moved through the shifting pathways together, the sounds of the Menagerie rising and falling around them like currents. Figures passed in clusters beneath floating lanterns. Laughter spilled from tents. Somewhere far off, music rose and disappeared behind another fold of distance. Bim looked up. She has a tail? Ben looked down. Yes. A real tail? Yes. Like, attached? Ben stared at him. Yes, Bim. He looked ahead again. Very serious. Very, very thoughtful. Wow. Ben watched him for a moment. Then looked away before the smile reached her mouth. She sheds. Bim's head snapped upwards. She what? Ben kept walking, absolute calm. Every season, she said. Silence fell between them, tiny, but a moment. Then, she does not, exclaimed Bim. Ben smiled. Tiny, almost victorious. No, she does not. Bim narrowed his eyes. That was mean. That was educational. They kept walking. Sorry about my voice again. Past lanterns, past strange performers, past people who smiled at Bim and others who stared too long at the little tux and oversized hat. The hat slipped. He pushed it back up. First, we go to my tent, Ben said. You'll meet her properly. A small breath. After that, she'll take you to Threnzelbark's tent. She slowed, then stopped. For the first time since he had known her, there was hesitation in her. Not much, just enough. Bim looked up immediately. Dan was staring ahead, not at the path, not at the tents, but thinking. The Menagerie moved around them. People laughed. Lanterns swayed. Life continued. But Ben stood very still. Miss Ben. Nothing. For a moment, she heard nothing. No response. Then Bim heard. A little light. Her voice was quieter. Careful. He waited. Ben exhaled slowly. Bark is difficult. Ben blinked. You said he was funny. He is. You said he teaches people. He does. He bites. Silence fell between them. Absolute silence. The Menagerie continued moving around them. Then Bim looked up, very, very slowly. What? Ben closed her eyes. A very long pause fell between them. I'm speaking, she searched for the word. Metaphorically. Bim just stared. Ben opened up one eye. Mostly. Ben! She pointed immediately. No. You said mostly. I made another strategic error. Bim looked increasingly alarmed. Ben crouched instantly, her hands on his shoulders. Listen to me very carefully. She said it with a very serious voice, and eyes that matched. Threnzelbark does not actually bite children. That's funny. I messed that up. Yeah, me. Recently, silence fell between them again. Ben stared at the middle distance. Bim stared at Ben. There was a long, quiet pause between them. But then, very quietly, I'm starting to regret not choosing the monster. Ben's eyes widened. Oh no! Ben tried to hide her reluctance, but not well enough. It showed in a way her hand tightened ever so slightly around his, in the small pause before she spoke again, and the way her eyes shifted ahead instead of down to him. I won't be joining you tonight, she said. Ben looked up. Wait, what? The menagerie still moved around them. Bright, strange, and alive. But the moment between them had suddenly gone still. Ben reached up and pulled a thin, dark curtain across her face, fastening it into place with practice ease. The fabric softened the angles of her features and hid her mouth completely, leaving only her eyes visible, sharp, and watchful, far more expressive than they had any right to be. I have a show to run, she said, her voice slightly muffled now behind the cloth, and I don't need people ruining my fun by reading my lips. A faint edge of humor slipped through anyways. Oop. It makes things harder for the performers sometimes. She adjusted the fabric lightly at the side of her face, but Thrensible says it makes the shows. Her eyes flicked towards the distance, where light and movement pulsed through the menagerie like a second heartbeat. So we keep doing it. They resumed walking. Dan gestured with her free hand as she spoke, fingers moving in a small, absent patterns through the air as though she were already rehearsing the shape of an act in her mind. Fire to ice, ice to glass, light to color, air to motion. As she names each thing, her fingers traced invisible rules and set a space before her. Nothing changed around them, not fully, but Ben felt the air respond all the same. A brief chill brushed his cheek, then warmth. Then a flicker of color moved across the edge of his vision, like sunlight passing through stained glass. Ben's eyes narrowed in concentration. A good performance needs rhythm. The audience thinks they're watching what we show them, but really, they're following what we allow them to feel. Ben stayed close to her side. You make rules for the show? Ben glanced out at him. I make rules for everything. That should have sounded like a joke, but somehow it didn't. Then her eyes softened a little. During my act? Yes. I control what the audience can perceive. Not completely. Never completely. That would be rude. And boring. Ben pushed his head up again. Why hide your mouth? So they can't guess the command before the wall takes hold. He frowned. That sounds almost like cheating. Ben's eyes brightened with the unmistakable amusement above the veil. It is theater. That still sounds like cheating. Her shoulders moved once. A silent laugh. Exactly. They passed between two tall tents stitched with silver symbols, and the air grew warmer as they approached Ben's own space. Ahead, the dark green canvas rose beneath strings of pale lanterns, elegant and severe, its entrance framed in silver curtains that shifted although no wind touched them. Ben slowed. Her hand remained around his for one more breath, then another. You're leaving me with Annalise? Oh, hold on. I pressed the wrong one. For a while. And then she takes me to Thrensible? Or Thrensibark? Yes. He swallowed. What if I do something wrong? Van crouched in front of him. her mass space level with his. Only her eyes showed now, their familiar purple darkening into red as magenta spirals slowly awakened within them, beneath the pale lantern glow. Then you learn. What if they don't like me? Then they're idiots. That answer came so quickly, Ben blinked. Ben's eyes softened. You don't need to impress everyone today, little light. Just stay curious, stay kind, and if someone asks a question that feels like a trap, her eyes sharpened. Ask them why they want to know. Ben nodded slowly. The hat slipped. Ben fixed it for him for one last time. There, she murmured. Dangerous, formal. Ben looked up at her. Miss Ben? Will you come back? For a moment, the menagerie seemed to quiet around them. Ben's gaze held his. Then she answered simply, yes. No flourish, no joke. Just yes. Ben believed her. Mostly. Ben stood and turned towards the entrance of her tent. Inside, the voices murmur. Lantern light shifted. Somewhere beyond the curtain, something cracked softly, like ice forming over flame. Ben squeezed his hands once before letting go. Come on, she said. Let's introduce you to the fire. Ben's tent felt more focused than the master tent. Not bigger than the master tent. Not louder. Just tighter. Like every inch in space inside had been measured and bent towards purpose Ben couldn't quite see. The crowd felt different too, not restless in the same way, attentive, waiting. As though everyone already knew exactly where to look the moment the show began. Ben guided him further along the outer passage, then slowed. The movement ahead had changed. The soft flow of performers and workers crossing behind the scenes had tended to something more deliberate, more practiced. Figures move with purpose here, stepping around one another with quiet rhythms that looked almost choreographed, even when they clearly were not. Bim caught flashes as they passed, a performer adjusting silver gloves stitched with tiny mirrors, someone balancing a stack of crystal rings taller than themselves, a pair of dancers stretching beneath hanging lanterns, their shadows twisting the canvas walls, moving like paper cutouts. And beneath all of that, heat, faint at first, then stronger, warmer than the rest of the tent. Close. Just that. Nothing else. Them moved nearer immediately. The air shifted again as they rounded another curtain. Not magical, physical, real. Warmth rolled over him all at once. Not the soft warmth of lanterns, not the kitchen warmth, fire warmth, living warmth. Ahead, the backstage space opened into a wide preparation area, lined with mirrors, framed bulbs, and scattered tables over costumes, makeup kits, ribbons, gloves, and strange tools Ben could not identify. Voices moved through the space, performers, workers, assistants, movement everywhere. And in the center of it, someone laughed. Bright, sharp, and confident. Not loud enough to dominate the room, just impossible not to notice. Bim looked up. Red. That was the first thing. Not fire, not flames. Red. Hair spilled down her back in wild waves that caught the lantern light in copper and ember whenever she moved. Soft fox-like ears rose through it, flicking once at some sound only she noticed. Behind her, the tail shifted lazily from side to side, red fading to a darker color near the tip. She stood before a mirror, while flames danced between her fingers, tiny controlled ribbons. They moved around her hands as naturally as she was breathing. Not summoned, just present. Yellow eyes met her own reflection. Then one ear twitched, paused, and turned slowly, very slowly. Annalise looked over her shoulder and immediately saw them, saw Ban, saw Bim, saw the tiny tux, the oversized hat, the little velvet cloak. Silence fell on them for the moment. Dead silence. A flame between her fingers went out. One heartbeat went by, then two, then three. Bim stared back. Annalise stared harder. Ban closed her eyes, very slowly. No. Too late. Far too late. Annalise inhaled, sharp, dangerously sharp. Then, both hands flew over her mouth. Her tail exploded outward. Behind her, her eyes widened. And through her fingers came a violently muffled sound. Bim blinked. Ban pointed immediately. No! Annalise doubled over, actually doubled over, shoulders shaking. Annalise looked up, pointed directly at Bim, and then at the hat, then immediately bent over again. Bim looked up at Ben. Am I funny looking? Ben stared at the ceiling with a long pause. Silence filled the room. A little light, yes. This is becoming a pattern. Bim watched her carefully. She was laughing, but not like people had laughed before. Not the sharp kind, not the cruel kind, not the kind that had made something inside him want to hide. This laughter was warm, startled, almost helpless. Like he had surprised the joy out of her before she could stop it. And that made it harder for him to be upset. Annalise finally straightened, wiping one eye before crouching to Bim's level. She paused, then smiled. Not the polished smile of a performer about to step on stage, a real one. Oh wow, Annalise said. You're even more adorable up close. Bim blinked, caught off guard by how direct she was. The word died there, small, uncertain. Annalise laughed softly, not unkind, not at him, just warm, amused, and immediately easy in the way that made the heat of the tent feel a little less overwhelming. I'm Annalise, she said, and I'd be honored to be under your house. There was no hesitation in it, no doubt, no careful, pointless, offended, out of obligation sound, just sincerity. That more than anything, made Bim look at her a little longer. My house? He asked quietly. Annalise's smile softened. Your house. Bim glanced up at Ban, as if checking whether that was allowed to be true. Ban gave the slightest nod. Not pushing him, just confirming. Bim looked back at Annalise. I don't really know how to have one yet. Annalise tilted her head, red ears flicking once. That's okay, little dude. Most people don't even know how to have anything important at first. Bim frowned. Really? Oh, absolutely. Her tail swayed behind her. I once tried to eat fire before learning how not to burn my tongue. Ben's eyes narrowed immediately. Annalise, what I learned. You also screamed for 20 minutes, Ben replied. Educationally, Annalise replied. Bim's eyes widened. Your tongue burned? Annalise leaned closer and whispered, just a little. Ben pointed sharply. She is not teaching you fire eating. Annalise looked wounded. I hadn't even offered. You were about to. I was building rapport. You were building liability. Bim looked between them, unsure and rather be afraid or impressed. Annalise grinned at him, all warmth and sparks. And I guide you, she added. Show you around. Help where I can. Her voice gentled. The menagerie is a lot at first. Bim looked down at his sleeves. It is a lot, he said with a frown on his face. Annalise laughed. Smart kid. Ben sighed. Do not encourage him too much. Why? He already accused my eyebrows of criminal intent. Annalise went completely still, then slowly turned towards Bim. You did what? Bim pushed the slipping hat up with both hands. They look suspicious. Annalise stared, then looked at Ben, then back to Bim. Her smile spread with absolute delight. Oh, we're going to get along beautifully, little buddy. Then Annalise looked between them, between Ben, between Bim. One ear flicked. Slowly, very slowly, her expression changed, not dramatically, just enough. The look of suspicion. Wait. Ben had already started turning away. A mistake. Annalise pointed. Wait. Ben stopped, not because she wanted to, because ignoring people who manipulated fire was probably a bad calculated risk. Annalise narrowed her eyes. A live demonstration. Silence. Ben smiled. Tiny but dangerous. Yes. Annalise stared harder. Ben. Yes? What kind of demonstration? Silence fell between them again, but it was tiny. Ben adjusted one sleeve. Absolute calm. The educational kind. Annalise's tail immediately puffed. No. Ben blinked. No? No. She pointed accusingly. That answer means things. It means education. It means trauma. Bim looked between them very slowly. What is trauma? Ben crouched instantly. No, ignore that. Nobody said that. Annalise stared at her. Long pause. Then, you once taught me gravity by removing the stairs. Silence fell between them. Bim froze. Ben fell silent. Slowly, very slowly, Ben looked from Bim to Annalise. That was wildly dishonest. Annalise stared. Ben. Context existed. You removed the stairs. There were cushions. There were the suggestion of cushions. Bim stared at Ben. Ben stared at the middle distance. I maintained the lesson was memorable. Annalise threw both hands upward. See? Bim looked confused. Actual confusion. Miss Ben? Yes. You can remove stairs? Ben immediately looked down. No. Selectively. Ben. I keep making strategic errors. Annalise folded inward, laughing. Not cruelly. There went the ear. We'll just keep looking like this. We'll be good. Just helplessly. Warmly. The backstage noise moved around them. Performers hurried past. Lanterns swayed. Somewhere beyond the curtain, the audience roared as another act stepped into the ring. And for the first time, for the first real time, Bim laughed. Tiny, brief. Just a little tiny sound. Small enough that he almost didn't recognize it, the sound itself, when it escaped. It startled him more than anyone. The laugh came out, soft and crooked, still half caught behind all the fear in his chest, but it was there, real. His hands lifted with it. His mouth opened before he remembered to stop it. Dan froze. Annalise stared. Dan turned. Bim immediately looked horrified. The silence was strange. Then, Annalise's eyes widened. Bim looked between them. What? Then, Ben spoke very softly. Nothing. Annalise smiled. Not a performer smiled, not a teasing smile, just warm and careful. Like she understood that if she touched the moment too hard, it might vanish. Because for a moment, beneath the lantern light and the heat of the impossible people, the frightened little boy in the borrowed clothes had forgotten to be afraid. Only for a moment, but still. The moment might have lingered longer, had the music not begun beneath their feet. It began low, almost beneath the notice at first. A steady rhythm rising from the other side of the tent. It slowly built in layers. Subtle at the start, then firmer, pulling the tent tight around it as the audience beyond shifted with it in anticipation. Van exhaled once, centering herself. Every trace of the woman from the estate seemed to fold away behind her eyes. The woman who had sat across from Bim in a warm kitchen, made terrible strategic errors with her own mouth, and fixed a hat like it mattered, was gone. Or, not gone exactly, hidden behind the veil. What remained was a performer, sharp, composed, and entirely in command of whatever came next. That's our cue, little dude. Annalise gave Bim a small wave, half dismissal, half trust. Oop. No, that's right. Before Bim could fully turn away, Ben slipped sideways and vanished through the curtain in one smooth motion, moving like she had become part of the act before even stepping into the light. Her voice rose almost immediately, bright, clear, commanding. Hello, everyone, and I would like to welcome you to Threnzible's magnificent Menagerie. The crowd answered at once, their response flowing through the canvas in a rush of energy and expectation. I am Ben, she called, and tonight we're going to take a twist on knife throwing. A ripple of anticipation moved through the tent. Bim could hear it, even from backstage. The sharp little laughs, the shifting bodies, the held breath of people leaning in. Annalise's ears flicked towards the sound. Then she glanced down at Bim with a grin. You ever see knife throwing? Bim shook his head. No. Good. That doesn't sound good. It means your expectations are fresh. I don't like how that sounds, Bim replied. Annalise laughed softly and crouched beside him, careful not to block his view of the curtain. From beyond the canvas, Ben's voice carried again, smoother now, threading with that strange authority Bim felt in the master tent. Usually, one throws knives at a target. The crowd waited. Ben let the silence stretch. But that feels rather unfair to the target, doesn't it? A few scattered laughs. Bim frowned, and Annalise leaned close and whispered, She's about to do something awful. His eyes widened. Awful bad? Awful impressive. That's not any better. It will be. From the other side of the curtain came the soft metallic sound of blades being lifted. One, then another, then very many. The air backstage seemed to sharpen with it. Bim could smell the oil and steel now, clean and cold beneath the thick warmth of the canvas and flame. His fingers curled around the edge of his little cloak. Van's voice rang through the tent. So tonight, the knives will choose where they belong. The audience went dead quiet. Annalise's grin widened. Bim swallowed. Beyond the curtain, something silenced. Something sliced through the air. Fast. Clean. A blade song. Then another. Then another. The crowd gasped. As one. Bim took one tiny step closer to Annalise. She rested a steady hand between his shoulders. Don't worry, she murmured. She almost always knows what she's doing. Bim looked up at her. Almost? Annalise's smile turned wicked. That's what makes it fun. Will they stay knives? Will the game even stay the oh wait, hold on, wrong person, hold on. Will they stay knives? Will the game remain the same? Sorry. A moment. Then with a smile audible even through the fabric. Well, that's what I'm here for. Her voice faded into the performance as it took hold, swallowed little by music, crowd noise, and the living pulse of the show. Backstage, the air felt hotter now, tighter. The difference between before and during had snapped fully into place. And Bim, standing beside Annalise at the edge of the curtain, listened as Ben stepped into her element and became something larger than a guide, larger than a caretaker. She became the act. Annalise offered him a hand. Come on, little dude. Bim placed her hand in hers, and Annalise led him away from the tent. He stayed close to her, not as close as he had been, but still close. Annalise noticed and shortened her stride without saying anything. The noise behind them swelled for a moment before softening into a distance, softening as the distance took over. Ben's voice faded into the pulse of performance, swallowed by music and applause, until it became just another thread in the living sound of the menagerie. The pathway shifted again as they walked, and with them, the mood, the mood of the place changed. So did the light. Orange, gold, and white. Warm tones washed over the canvas and lantern light here, brighter and softer at once, almost playful after the sharper heat of Ben's. Excuse me. After Ben's tent. See, I said it's live and messy, damn it. The air felt different too. Lighter somehow, though less strange. Or though no less strange. There was a smell here like toasted sugar, sun-worn cloth, old paper, and something faintly smoky beneath it all, as if laughter itself had been struck against flint. The menagerie was changing around him again, rearranging its space with every new threshold. This one, Annalise said after a moment, glancing down at him. I'm not going to lie to you. Ben looked up at her immediately. That usually means it's bad. It means I'm being honest. That usually means bad. Annalise's ears blinked once, amused despite herself. There, little dude. They passed beneath a row of floating lanterns shaped like little suns. Warm light caught in Annalise's red hair, turning it bright as living flame. Her tail swayed behind her with easy confidence, but her expression had shifted into something more careful. This tent is different, she said. Ben teaches control by making the world obey. Bark teaches humility by making sure you realize the world was never listening to you in the first place. Ben frowned. That sounds mean. It can be. She glanced ahead. But it can also be useful. The path before them curved between two tall canvas walls painted in spiral orange, white, and gold. Somewhere beyond them came laughter. Not loud, not wild, quick, clever. The kind of laughter that darted around corners before you could catch it. Bim's hand drifted to the brim of his hat. To the brim of his yes, I missed it. To the brim of his hat. That's funny. It had started slipping again. He pushed it back into place. What happens there? He asked. Annalise smiled faintly. You get confused. I'm already confused, he said. Then you're almost ready. That didn't comfort him. And with that, my friends, tonight, this story comes to an end. If you made it this far, I want to thank you, truly. If you've spent the this time anywhere, but you chose to spend it here beneath the lanterns, wandering through this strange and living story with me. That means more than I can properly put into words. As always, I'll be closing out tonight with our opening song, with the lyrics included. Hopefully, I don't botch it up this time, but no promises. But before you go, remember, wherever you travel, by land, by air, or by sea, remember, someone out there loves you. Make it home. Someone is waiting to hear you made it home safely. So take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Keep your lanterns burning. And until next time, little lights, have a good night and be safe. And if this is loud, I apologize, because I'm allowing the system to do it for the first time.
We're laughter bites.
Have a good night, everybody.
Lanterns low, moon won't move. Big gold tent got a strange little groove. Where laughter bites. Where laughter bites. Some came running from the dark. Some came knocking at the wrong door. Some found shelter in the sparks. Some ain't coming back no more. 1 in 5 outruns the shadow. 1 in 5 sees morning light. Small hands shaking at the table, trying hard to be alright. Big hat slipping, heart still kicking. Oh, world staring, rules keep switching. Too much fire, too much fear, too much you were meant for this in a child's ear. Roof might talk, stairs might leave, knives might sing when the whole room breathes. Hold on tight, don't close your eyes. The joke ain't funny when it's got teeth inside. We'll have to bite, bite, bite under lantern light. Light, light, light. Small spark, don't you run. The lesson starts when the laughing comes. We'll have to bite, bite, bite in the moon's dark night. Night, night, night. Tiny crown, big fright. Small spark, stay alive. Where laughter bites. Fire girl standing in the smoke, red tail moving like a flame. Saw the hat and almost broke. Tried to hide it, laughed anyway. No, 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 but the grin got wide. Few stepped back for a breath that night. She said, stand close. He said, why? She said, some things take time. He said, is everybody fire? She said, kid, you'll learn just fine. Crowd might roar, curtains cheat. Law might dance to a crooked beat. Hold on tight, don't close your eyes.